Oh. And in the face of this, you have to stand up. You have to stand up and speak out. Let me tell you something. They are very well coordinated, and they are very well funded. And they pretty much own the media. Pretty much. God help you if you want to stand up. But now is the time that you link arms. You can see the machine you're up against. Have no fear. You try to stand up and support Israel, and suddenly you're with the occupiers. You're with the war criminals. What did the Washington Post call me? Oh, yeah, that's right. On Friday, they called me a creature. Wow. I've seen some other people, you know, in the mid-1930s use that kind of language to dehumanize people. It always ends well. Right now, America needs people who are willing to stand up and lead, no matter what the blowback may be. We have only 5 shows after this, and I am picking very carefully what I do on these 5 shows. I want to introduce you to a man tonight that I think will make a difference. He already has made a difference. You may not know much about him. You may not like his style. You may not like his policies. In the end, I hope you at least walk away with the feeling that I have about him. He is an honest man. I don't pick or choose or back any presidential nominees. However, I do think that some of them need to be exposed. Herman Cain we exposed a couple of weeks ago. I thought he was worth your time listening to. I think this man is as well. Not many politicians have spine. This man does. He's proved as much to me. A few years ago, facing a tough election, he was ahead of the curve on the threat of radical Islam. We have talked about it between us for years. Radical Islam growing in Iran, the Middle East, and the increasing pressure being put on Israel. He knew it wasn't popular in the polls when he was running. The last thing he wanted to talk about was the Middle East. He told me at the time when I said, you know, you should back off of this because this isn't helping your reelection. He said he wouldn't be able to face his children if he didn't speak out, even if it meant he lost. He did, but he can sleep at night. Joining me now is former Senator and GOP presidential candidate Rick Santorum. Rick, how are you, sir?
Doing great, Gordon. Thank you.
Good to see you. You bet.
Appreciate the kind words.
It's not kind words. It's the truth. You have been on Israel and Iran for a very long time.
Have.
Will you agree with me that Israel is the key to the Middle East? If you pull it out, the West collapse.
Yeah, I mean it's our anchor in the Middle East. It's a strategic ally for us. It's also essential for the Jewish people. I mean we can't ignore the history of the Jewish people and understand the significance to the world of having a Jewish homeland. So it is a strategic ally for us. It is, as you mentioned, the stopper in the Middle East, but it's also a very important humanitarian place also.
I'm going over to Poland in a couple of weeks on something that's a venture that I'm doing, and I'm not going to do a special on Auschwitz per se. I'm visiting Auschwitz, but I'm talking about the town, which is just a few miles outside of the gate. And I have been doing my research and trying to figure out how did this happen. Poland, I didn't know this when I first started doing my research, Poland rose up, a lot of Poles rose up to try to help the Jews. But they had nothing left. They had no arms. The Jews couldn't defend themselves. They had no state. They had nothing. We're at least at this point, we have a Jewish state that can defend themselves, but the world says they shouldn't.
Well, I mean, the whole key to all of this is that the people that are opposing the Israeli state in the Middle East have never recognized the existence of the state of Israel. You cannot pull away from Israel. You have to stand by Israel until the people who seek to do them harm come to terms with the fact that Israel will exist and that the United States, hopefully the world, will stand behind them and their right to exist. As long as the Palestinian Authority, as long as the others in the Middle East refuse to accept Israel's right to be there, then there can be no peace. And we should not force Israel into any negotiation until that condition is met.
Do you think America has enough courage to turn the tide on Israel?
If we had a strong leader who had the respect of the world? Yes, the answer is because we've done it in the past. Leaders throughout the course of the time the State of Israel's been in place have stood strongly with them, and as a result, Israel has had a modicum of stability and success. We see now is a president who is backing away, who is, as you've talked about here, very much an internationalist, someone who sees his role as almost transcending the presidency.
Yeah.
And sees his role as to work with the international community to their ends, not to the ends of the national security interest of our country, not to the ends of supporting allies who are strategic for us, but to the ends of some greater goal than the goals here in the United States.
Okay, when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about, I don't know if, America, you've seen this yet. This is Time Magazine. Constitution. Does it still matter? Their conclusion, nah, not so much. And Rolling Stone and what they said about Michelle Bachmann. The role of God in your life, creation of jobs in America, what we're doing with the Fed.
With the unstable economy and
In the break, Senator Rick Santorum, a 2012 Republican presidential contender, we were talking about courage and whether people have the courage and looking to people of history to find it. Because it really, that's all it takes is to save our country, is somebody having the courage of their convictions.
Yeah, you just look at people throughout the history. I was remarking about one such man that I'm very familiar with, Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, who fought at the Battle of Gettysburg and led the 20th Maine, who was at the end of the Union line, and on the second-day battle fought the advance to flank the Union line, would have cut off the Union Army from Washington, maybe defeated the Union Army at that very moment, and fired until he had no ammunition, and then ordered a bayonet charge down the hill, sacrificing everything, and captured the Confederates in a brilliant move and won the day. And 25 years later, he came and gave a speech right at that ground, and he talked about how. And he asked his men to sort of close his eyes and think about, here we are in this deathless field, and that people will come, people we don't know, but they'll come to see what we did here. And that's the purpose of life, is to live forever in the minds of people, to have sacrificed and served so people who we know not of will come here to remember what we did and be inspired by that.
You are, there's a lot of this audience, I'd say the vast, vast majority of this audience will say, wow. By you saying that in today's world, you are going to be mocked relentlessly for saying that there is something, that someone will come. They'll mock you for that.
No, but that's, you know, Ronald Reagan, when he left office, he gave his farewell address. And the last thing he said as President of the United States in his farewell address was his concern about Americans not appreciating what America is, not understanding who we are, not being proud of what America is. You know this, Glenn. I know you've talked about this, that the worst subject in our school systems is not math and science. They complain about math and science squares, but it's not math and science. It's history. Americans and young people aren't being taught history. I was in Council Bluffs, Iowa a couple of days ago, and I talked about that. And a college professor who happened to be there, who teaches at Washburn University.
Was he wearing a Che shirt?
No, he was a conservative, believe me.
Really?
Yeah, he was a conservative.
He was the one.
Well, the one. Now, here's the interesting thing. He said, you know, you're right. He said, in my history class, introductory history class at the school, I pass out a citizenship test to every student who comes into my class, and I have them take it. He said, you know what the percentage of right answers is? 40%. 15% pass rate. 5% of kids in college.
How does America survive like that?
You can't survive. You can't survive. And we have leaders. We have leaders who don't focus on.
No, we have leaders that, quite honestly, Rick, we have leaders that don't even admit it. They don't even see it. I can't tell you how many people I talk to in Washington all the time, and they're like, okay. I start talking about this. I mean, what part of this do you think is nuts?
Nothing.
Okay, all right.
It's true. I mean,
they talk about this, and I start talking to them about people that are teaching in schools, or I talk to them about the revolutionaries that are organizing in our own country, and their eyes just glaze, and they're gone. They're gone.
Look, there is an organized effort to try to change what America is. I mean, look, I always say when you go back and read Barack Obama's speeches during the last campaign, everybody focused on the hope and change. They didn't focus on the first 3/4 of the speech, which was a condemnation, not of George Bush, but of what America is. And he wanted to change America.
Fundamentally transform.
Fundamental change in America. And guess what? He's doing it. And we have, I think, thank God, people like you and others, the Tea Party, who have recognized how foundationally he wants to change this country. It's not surprising to see Time magazine talk about the Constitution, say how insignificant. I'm surprised they didn't throw the Declaration in for good measure.
Okay, well, they dismissed that. Can I tell you something? It's not a surprise that Time is running this, seeing that Barack Obama and George Soros' good buddy Fareed Zakaria this last weekend did a piece on how outdated the Constitution is, and we should be more like Iceland, which is just, ready, rewriting a new Constitution through Facebook.
No.
Why not?
You're making that up. You're making that up.
Swear to you.
Oh,
I swear to you. So now it's a coordinated effort, and here we have in, or it appears to be happenstance. Here we have in this article, I actually have it highlighted here. We have in this article a few things that I have to read to you. One of the last paragraphs in it. We can pat ourselves on the back of the last 223 years, but we cannot let the Constitution become an obstacle to the U.S.'s moving into the future.
It sounds like the Supreme Court. I mean, it really does. It sounds like what we've been seeing from our courts, which see the Constitution as this outdated document, and that we have to have this living, breathing Constitution. We have to have something that we can pull from international law, or something we can pull from, well, from our hearts that we know to be true.
What is the meaning of the Constitution?
I always say the Constitution is the owner's manual of America. That it sets up a government whose sole purpose, in my opinion, is to protect life and liberty. That's the purpose of the Constitution, is to make sure that you and everyone here in America
I don't know why you would
free.
say that our liberty is at stake, or our lives at stake. I don't know if you saw the TSA in completely unrelated news. TSA today, by the way, has selected the airport screeners. They're being organized by the AFL-CIO. That's going to be good, isn't it?
Yeah.
When we come back, I want to ask you just a little bit more about this.
Sure.
This is what they say that the framers didn't see these things coming. So how would you address that? Back in just a second. We are with Rick Santorum. He's a 2012 Republican presidential contender. And I want to get back to the Constitution because Time magazine asked, is it even relevant anymore? To Congress? No. No, it's not. To Washington? No. No. To America? Yes. I want to talk to you, get back to the Constitution, but I want to just do a couple of things here, kind of short answers here. You
did this to me about 6 years ago. I just want you to know, on your radio show. I came on your radio show, and you said, now, I said, I'm going to ask you 30 questions, and I want yes or no answers. I said, I can't expand it. I said, no, I want yes or no. You mealy-mouthed politicians, you were just laying the lumber to me.
That's right.
And you went through it. One question, I gave a slight caveat, but I gave answers to all 30, and then you finished. I finished the answer, and there was this dramatic, it seemed like a minute pause, and then you finally said, I want to kiss you in the mouth. That's what you said.
I think I may have said on the mouth, not in the mouth.
No, I think you said in. I felt invaded. I just want you to know that. So I remind you of that
I mean, I am excited by politicians who will actually say what they're thinking and answer a yes or no question. Cantor and Kyle walked today from the Biden budget talks. Serious talks or not?